First of all, happy Rosh Chodesh to everybody. I know that for many of us, it's already turning into Beis Adar, but for some of us, like in Hawaii people, it's still Rosh Chodesh. Maybe in California, it's still Rosh Chodesh. So wanted to wish everybody a happy Rosh Chodesh. Wanted to really start off with a story. I know that people sometimes see my name and they expect for me to be humorous the entire time, but I feel like sometimes it's good to hear a serious story and a serious message as well, and that can help us in our efforts to try to maintain a positive attitude and to try to be joyful. So the story actually goes as follows. In Jerusalem and Yerushalayim, off the cobblestone streets, there was a small little shtibel. And in the back of the shul, there sat a pious-looking Jewish person who sat every single day and learned. And there were a group of kids that used to pass by this shul, and they would see this man learning every single morning. And on their way back from school, they would notice that he was still there. And this happened day after day after day, until one time they finally decided, let's go inside and let's ask him why he's here all day. He's like, every moment that we pass, back and forth, he's always here. So they went inside the shul and they went to the back, heard the humming sounds of someone learning, and they approached him and they said to him, you know, we noticed that you're here every single day. We pass by on our way to Cheder and you're learning. We pass by on the way home from Cheder and you're still learning. Why are you always learning? And he said to them, you know, I'm going to tell you a story. He said, many, many years ago, I used to live in Russia. And one night when I was about to go to sleep, I was just a little boy. And I heard somebody knocking on our house door. And I heard my parents open the door, and I was in my bed trying to sleep. And I heard them trying to speak in a hushed tone, but I was able to hear what they were saying. And I heard the voice of my Rebbe. And the Rebbe was telling my parents that unfortunately, because they had not paid the school fees, he was unable to really have me in the school anymore. And until they paid the dues, I was going to have to stay home. And he said, I remember going into my blanket and feeling so worried and so scared of what tomorrow would bring. And the next morning, he said, I woke up and I came into the kitchen area and I asked my parents, what am I going to be doing today? And he said, my parents looked at me and they just said, what do you mean? You're going to do what you always do every day. You're going to be going to Cheder. And he didn't understand exactly what that meant because his parents certainly did not have the money to pay the overdue fees. But he said that's when he noticed how cold it was in the house. And when he turned to see what was up with the furnace, he noticed that it wasn't there anymore. His parents had sold the furnace that kept their entire family warm in the cold, cold winter so that he could continue to go to school. And he said to these little boys, you know, from that moment that I realized what my parents did, I made a promise that I would never, ever stop learning. And I never did. He actually grew to be a big, I think, Litvisher Rosh Yeshiva. And that is really such an important lesson for all of us. You know, as parents, we see the potential in our children. We try our best to tap into that potential. But as teachers, we have that same responsibility. You know, there's nothing more in my book, there's nothing more complimentary to me when a student accidentally calls me mommy. Because the most important person in a child's life is their parents, specifically their mother. So when they are able to call you that, and they usually chuckle, and I always tell them, you know, in school, I am like your mommy. And that's really true. We have such a power as teachers to create an environment in our room where every single child feels so loved and so accepted. And we learned it from the Rebbe. And one of my favorite stories, I say it again and again and again, is a story about a little boy who grew up in Crown Heights. He was not Lubavitch, but he went to Lubavitch school. And he was unfortunately not the best student. It was in the 1950s, shortly after the Holocaust. And the school, Pashut had Rahmanas on him, because if it was their choice, they would have kicked him out. He was so rambunctious and so out of control that they wanted to throw him out. But his parents were survivors and they felt so terrible, so they just didn't. But they would send him out of class all the time. And he was forced to write the same Mishnah over and over and over again, the same way we used to. I'm sure none of you, I'm saying I used to have to write, like, I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. You know, you write it again and again and again. So this poor boy was forced to write this Mishnah again and again and again and again. And that's really what he spent a lot of his time doing. And shortly before his bar mitzvah, his father said to him, I want you to know that I've arranged for you to have yichidus with the Rebbe for your bar mitzvah. And this child was so excited. He was going to get a new suit. He was going to get a new hat, a tie. He was so excited. He came to school and he told his friends, guess what? My father arranged for me to have yichidus. I'm going to have yichidus with the Rebbe in honor of my bar mitzvah. And the kids in his class looked at him and they're like, that's great. But do you know that when you go to have yichidus, the Rebbe is going to give you a farher. He's going to ask you questions about what you learned in school. And this child began to freak out because he literally was not in school. He was in the building, but he was never in class. And now he was about to go with his father to have yichidus with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was going to give him a farher, and he knew nothing. And he was literally shaking in his boots. And the day of the yichidus came, and he goes inside the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe Taka starts asking him questions. And he's asking questions, and this boy is able to answer, and he's able to answer every single one. And his father is sitting in the back, standing in the back, with his face was beaming. He was so proud of his Talmid Chacham son. He didn't even realize how bright his child was. He was an Eloi. And after the Yechidus, the boy and the father step out, and this boy realized something incredible. You know, his father says to him, you know, what a Talmid Chacham, I'm so, so proud of you. And this boy realized that the Rebbe asked him questions only on that same Mishnah that he was forced to write again and again and again. The Rebbe sensed that this boy had tremendous potential. And that is why the Rebbe, with tremendous Avos Yisrael and Ruach HaKodesh, asked him questions he knew. And this boy actually found this newfound appreciation of learning. And he began to study vigilantly every single day. Eventually, he became the principal of a very big Jewish day school in New York. And it was because of this day, because of that day, that he went in for Yechidus. And the Rebbe recognized and allowed him to see that he had a tremendous amount to give to this world. And that's what we have an opportunity to do, to create an environment where every single child feels loved and accepted for who they are. I know for myself, every single morning, I stand by my door, and as every single child walks into my classroom, I say good morning. And I always call my students by their Hebrew name. I say good morning to them. I will always notice if they have a new haircut, or if they got a new pair of shoes, or if they're wearing something new. It's a second for them to tell me something cool that happened in their day the night before. But it's important for them to come into a room where their Mora or their Rebbe loves to be there, because if you love to be there, they will love to be there too. And the more engaged you are in their personal life as well, showing an interest in who they are as a person, the more they will want to hear every single thing that you want to say. There was a professor who did a little experiment on her class, and she gave all of them a piece of white paper, and in the center of the paper was a black dot. And she said to them, write everything you know about this. Anything you want to write about this, write it. And they began to write pages and pages and pages, and she collected them all. And the next morning she came back to class and she said, you know what? I found it very fascinating that I gave out this paper and every single person focused on the black dot. Every single person was writing and writing and writing about the black dot, but no one was writing about the white all around. And it really is a message. She was saying to them that sometimes we focus too much on the negative things that are going on, when there's so much positive things that are going on that we could be focusing on. And in a classroom, you're going to have kids that disturb you every now and again. You're going to have kids that are going to do things that aren't always within the lines of what they should be doing. Don't focus on those. Focus on the things that make them special. Focus on the things that they're doing right, because they will turn around. Every child wants to please you. I know for myself, I'm a first grade teacher, and sometimes everyone, it's not even sometimes, every single person is going to have a unique way of how they work their classroom. And sometimes you're going to work with a teacher in the afternoon who doesn't always see eye to eye with you about how things should be running. And I was speaking to my brother once, and he told me a very interesting story. He said, I believe it was Rabbi Greenwald from Krachabad, who also happened to be a first grade teacher, went to the Rebbe, and he was speaking to the Rebbe about him being a teacher and him possibly thinking of leaving the profession, because he said that he was being criticized for not, giving this certain straight and narrow form to his classroom. He was a little bit more loving and a little bit more giving leeway to his students. And he was about to leave the job. And the Rebbe actually, I believe, stood up and said to him that a child is their own biggest critic. They don't need anyone else to criticize them. We know that as human beings, we criticize ourselves. We don't need other people to criticize us. And a child is the same. A child deserves to be appreciated for who they are. They do not need to be criticized. If we focus a lot on the good things that they're doing and the good behaviors and the good points about them, you will see that those are the things that are going to stand out, that you're going to see it, and they're going to be much more prevalent. I had a little girl in my class, actually, that the mom told me, even 2-3 days after school, she said, I already noticed a difference in her. She said, in the way that she was brushing her hair. She said, literally in the morning, the way she was brushing her hair with confidence. This was a child who didn't think too highly of herself, didn't have the highest self-esteem. But her mother said in 3-4 days of being in first grade, she already sensed a different child. And that's what we all have the power of doing. We have the power to have a child feel that certain sense of warmth and love, that they themselves will be able to grow so much in their own self-esteem, in their own confidence, and in the way that they learn as well. I actually gave my students an assignment today. I wanted to put together a video. My day was a little crazy, and I was going to ask my students what makes the classroom a happy place for them to be. I didn't have time to do it, but I did an assignment in honor of the month of Adar, and I gave all of them a clown, and I spoke to them how important it is to be happy, and I said to them, why don't we all write one thing that makes us very happy? I actually didn't have time to read all of them. I only read one. The first one that I read, one of the little girls brought it over to me, and we said, what makes me happy? And she wrote, going to school. That's what makes her happy. And a child who loves to go to school, chances are it's because their teacher loves to be there. I had a parent reach out to me not too long ago. I had been her daughter's teacher when she was 3. And then I was her teacher again when she was 5. And then I was her teacher again when she was 6. I ended up moving up grades in this school. I taught nursery. They moved me to kindergarten. Then they moved me to first grade. And I was her teacher in first grade. And shortly afterwards, she started going to public school. But her mother reached out to me on her 18th birthday. And she did it via Facebook. She posted a picture of me and her child on her child's 3-year-old birthday. And she wrote to me. She said, I want you to know, Mora Devora, ever since Rachel was in your class, she has been begging and begging and begging to go back to a Jewish school. And finally, when she was in high school, we relented and we sent her to a Jewish school. And she said to me, I want you to know that she's in college right now, and she's actually involved with Chabad and Hillel on campus. And she said, I just want you to know how much, even though she was so young, that you inspired her. And she said to me, I want you to know, Devora, that I actually became a preschool teacher myself, and I sing the songs that you used to sing with Rachel. You don't know sometimes the power of the words that you say, of the songs that you sing, but they all have a profound impact on children. I know for myself, I try to make my room a room where there's always singing and always laughing. I tell jokes all the time, to have the kids feel like their classroom is just the happiest place for them to be, that's the place where they want to be most. And I actually want to end off with a letter that I got from a parent a number of years back. It must have been about 3-4 years back. But it's a letter that I got from a father. And we all know how uncommon that is. If a father shows up to parent-teacher conferences, it really is a big deal. But this is a letter that I got from a father. And he writes to me like this. I've intended to email you many times, and now finally am remembering to send you this brief note. I'm not sure if you remember, but a few years ago, you taught our daughter Esti. Since that time, she has attended not only LPS, but also Yeshivat Noam in Paramus, and this past year at a school in Jerusalem called Ayelet HaShachar. Esti smiles when we remind her about each one of her warm and caring morod from LPS, but your name stands out for her. To this day, anytime Esti is recalling a story from Tanakh, she says she learned it from Mora Devora. Anytime she is describing a concept related to Midos, she said she learned it from Mora Devora. And despite the years that have passed, anytime I ask her who her favorite teacher was, she says Mora Devora. When I ask her why, she says that Mora Devora never ever yelled, and Mora Devora always loved me. I thought it was important for you to know how your positive influence can make a lasting imprint on a little girl's neshama, and how grateful my wife and I are that Hashem brought you into Esti's life at such a precious, formative age. Thank you, and may Hashem bless you with a lifetime of infinite opportunities to leave your distinctively positive impression on children. So I always feel like the reason why that's special is because that's really something we all do and not really notice that we're doing. We all try to provide a warm and loving space for the students in our class. But besides providing that warm and loving space, it's also very important to realize that every single child in our classes are a unique individual, and they have an incredible amount of potential. In this book of Shemais that we're reading right now, we know that there's two extreme environments that we read about. We read about the desert, and we also read about crossing the Yam Suf. And the Yam Suf and the desert are both very, very different things. The desert is a clear, open space. You're able to see everything in front of you. Whereas the Yam Suf, the water, it's not that way. When you're standing near the ocean, you can kind of see the little tippity top of what's there, but deep within you really have no clue of what's inside. And that really tells us a lot about ourselves. Every one of us has two different sides of our personality. We have the sides of us that are clear like the desert, that we show everybody else. But we also have that ocean. We have that part of us that is so deep that sometimes we don't reveal it. It's there, but maybe we're nervous to explore it, or we're anxious to show it to people. We have to remember that that part, that ocean, as a teacher, that's up for us to uncover. The same way that Moshe helped the Jewish people cross through the Yam Suf, they were able to dig deep within themselves, to find that part of them they never even knew existed. And the same way that the Rebbe sees it in every single one of us, that we have a part of us that needs to be explored, that we have so much to give to this world, that we have an incredible amount of potential. And we have that as well. It's our achrayus as teachers to see every single child as an individual, and to try our best to allow for them to understand that they have an incredible amount of potential. So with that, I really wish you hatzlacha rabba in your most important job. That you know, always remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Create a loving space for your students. Have that tremendous amount of love and warmth, and try your best to help them achieve their purpose, their potential. And in this month of Adar, I wish that you all have the opportunity to do it in true simcha and true joy. And thank you all so much. Happy Rosh Chodesh, and only happy and good things.
Thank you, Devora. That was incredibly inspiring. Do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question?
Sure.
You were talking about how you greet your students at the beginning of every day. Could you show us like what that looks like so that we can try? Are you in front of your desk? Are you at the door? Are they filing in?
I stand right at the door before they come in. So let's just say, here's the door. I stand right here by the door, and as they come in, Boker Tov, Leo, Boker Tov, Gabriel. Oh my gosh, did you get a haircut? I love it. Come on in, take out your homework folder. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Hadassah. I'm so happy that you're here. Oh, you did that over Shabbos? Oh, that's so interesting. I can't wait to hear more a little bit later. Good morning. That is how it's done every single morning. I'll tell you, when the first thing a child sees in the morning is your smile, it turns their day around. It really, really does.